Welcome to the Movie Pro Podcast.
This podcast may contain rambling, foolishness, and spoilers. Duh.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Movie Probe with me, Martin Cowan.
And me, Stewart Cinnamon. Yes, it is episode 2. Ooh it, whoop whoop.
You can tell you're excited. I'm excited as well, to be honest with you. This week we are moving on to one of your picks. It's Empire Strikes Back this week.
It is certainly way to not build up any suspense about what it's going to be. I mean, to be fair, we did say it in the last podcast.
We told them in the last podcast, yeah.
Yeah, no suspense needed build. It's just straight in, bang.
Yeah, no, I know you're excited because it's a top film that you've picked.
It is,
and I also look forward to it because it's I love the Star Wars movies as well. And it is definitely up there as one of the sort of top movies. So I'm looking forward to discussing it this week.
Yeah, I have plenty of points, plenty of little things that jumped out at me, and I feel like we're going to have a good chat about some of these things and just how kitsch that Star Wars used to be and stuff like that. So cool, yeah. Well, we'll kind of move into the first section now. There's been some goings on in the world of Hollywood, and now it's time for Stu's news. So Martin, here we go. Right, first bit of news I've got for you today, and it's involving an actress that you are very fond of.
All right. Who's this?
So, the actress is Karen Gillan of Doctor Who fame.
Oh.
And did you know they were... Yep, here we go. I've piqued your interest. I've got you already. That they are considering her... Yep, they are considering her to be the lead of the new Pirates of the Caribbean remake.
Wow. I actually did see this
How
news.
does that take you?
And it immediately got me mega excited. I've been a big fan of Karen Gillan since first seeing her in Doctor Who, and love the fact that she moved over to Guardians of the Galaxy, the Marvel Universe, and Jumanji. So yeah, to see her potentially, I don't think it's been confirmed, but she's certainly in the running to be the lead. It
has been well rumoured.
Yeah, because it's a reboot this time, isn't it?
It seems to be that way. Yeah, it seems to be that they're actually just going to start from scratch. So it's going to be very interesting what kind of character they have her play. I think because obviously you can't really replicate what they did with Jack Sparrow. I think it was very much lightning in a bottle kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that could ever be replicated. So again, whether they take it a more serious tone. With an actress like Karen Gillan, or obviously it's Disney, so there'll still be that light-hearted kind of attitude towards it.
My fear behind it is because of the lightning in the bottle with Captain Jack. The series really was about him, so my fear is that when they try and reboot it, it will fail miserably, and that's my fear because I love Karen Gillan, and I think she'll do a fantastic job.
Yeah.
But even if she does do a fantastic job, my fear is that it won't compare to Captain Jack, which is what it will be judged by.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be like this. I don't want to, obviously, I don't want to go in with the kind of mindset of, I'm not going to like this is going to be awful, etc., etc. But I can't see how they're going to do it and how they're going to almost recreate it, because like you say, it's already cursed because it will be compared to all these Pirates of the Caribbean. And yeah, people say there's only 2 good ones out of all of them, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I like most of them. I think the only one that I really wasn't keen on was the 4th one.
Yeah, I didn't like the one with no, I can't even say it. Penelope Cruz.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of that one. I did enjoy the rest. I think the first 2 were definitely the best ones.
Yeah.
But I still enjoyed the rest.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a franchise which had a character in it that essentially outgrew the franchise. Captain Jack became more than just Pirates of the Caribbean, almost so that the franchise did kind of suffer from that. So maybe maybe that's what they'll kind of go. They'll kind of take a more serious tone to make the actual films the center of everything rather than this one character.
Yeah, I hope they build, like you say, a proper world, and like as you say, don't just have it focused on one character,
Mm-hmm.
and that it becomes maybe more grounded and less fantasy.
Yeah.
I mean, it still definitely will be fantasy-like, but it'll be interesting to see a more grittier tone,
Yeah.
to a film like that.
Definitely, definitely. Well, speaking of Karen Gillan, and you spoke about how she was in Jumanji.
I did.
I have some news about one of our co-stars, Dwayne the Rock Johnson. So
Oh, of Hercules fame.
of Hercules fame from last week. Yeah, that's a
I've
callback.
learned.
We're already doing callbacks. Amazing. Yeah. So as you know, this well, it's supposed to be this year. I'm pretty sure it's been rescheduled to next year. Him and Emily Blunt were going to be releasing a film called Jungle Cruise.
Yeah, I heard of
Yeah.
that. I don't really
So
know what it's about.
so this piece of news isn't about that film.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
They have in fact been cast again with each other in a film called Ball and Chain. I don't know much about
Get
Ball
a
and Chain.
room.
I know, but I don't know much about Ball and Chain. But apparently, it is a superhero duo, so it's going to be a superhero movie with the two of them. I think they're a married couple.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Do you know what studio's releasing that?
nope.
No.
I don't think
Cool.
it's Marvel or DC. As you know, I'm really into my Marvel, so I
Yeah.
don't think it's
Yeah.
Marvel or DC. So it might be either Dark Horse or Image. Again, this is just something that's been reported, and it's still one of those that's kind of up in the air. So when it gets solidly like cast and solidly like, yeah, this film's definitely happening, then I will look more into who Ball and Chain are. But right now, I don't have the time.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
It was a good piece of trivia, nonetheless. I enjoyed it. I hope the listeners did as well.
And while we're staying on the theme of superheroes, oh my goodness, I'm doing these links like proper well this week, by the way. So, superheroes,
I know, well
biggest superhero movie of all time, Avengers Endgame. Yes,
Absolutely, it was.
directors of Avengers Endgame, the Russo brothers. Am I also correct?
You're also correct. The Russo brothers were the directors
I
of
am.
Avengers: Infinity
Right.
War and Endgame.
Okay, so there's your link, superhero and superhero directors films. So, as I said last week, the Russo brothers are in talks, or they are signed on to be the producers of the Disney remake of Hercules.
Yes.
So yes. So this week they've come out and said that it's not going to be a literal translation of the old movie. So it's going to be a completely new story. Not completely new. They said they're going to borrow some elements from the old film, but it is going to be a mainly new thing because they believe in doing new things, even when the story's already like however many years old. They believe in doing new things with old stories. So that is what they're
That's cool.
planning on.
I
doing.
like that. I like that because I don't like remakes necessarily telling the exact same story. It almost being a shot for shot.
Yeah. Lion
like
King.
with. I was gonna say, with the exception of Lion King. I know you're not the biggest fan.
I'm so on the fence. Even like a year after it came out, I'm still on the fence.
I still think it's fantastic because that's the exception. That I love the fact that is a remake, because like almost shot for shot. I mean, it isn't exactly shot for shot, but it's so similar. The reason I like that is because The Lion King, I feel, is unreimaginable in sense of it's so iconic. You can't change it without improving it, but you just make it worse, which is why I like it the way it is. However, a lot of other movies that try and do that, make it exactly the same, I feel, which isn't quite as iconic. I don't like. I'm like, what? I could just watch the original. So yeah, I like the fact that they're gonna do something new with it. And it'll be interesting to see what it is. Whether how heavily music and singing and things like that will be part of it.
Well, that is my next point. They have not confirmed whether or not there will be any music in it. Obviously, there'll be score, but they haven't confirmed whether the songs from the original will be in it. Now, I personally think it would be a mistake not to put them in it. Some of the songs in it are some of Disney's best. I personally think, like from the whole Greek chorus to to Go the Distance and Zero to Hero and I Won't Say I'm in Love, like all those ones. It's like one of Disney's most underrated soundtracks, I think, in my own opinion, obviously. It's one of Disney's most underrated soundtracks, and I think that it deserves to be redone and done live, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've not. I mean, I have seen Hercules, but not that many times, and nowhere near as much as you, because I know Hercules is one of your sort of top Disney films.
Yeah, I'm literally
I
staring
believe.
at the DVD now. It's like you're staring at me right now.
Yeah, so obviously you know the songs a lot better than me and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see when that comes out.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see what your opinion is on it, because I'm not that bothered about the original. I enjoyed it, but I've not seen it that many times.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see if you come out of that film going, yeah, that was great, or whether you'll do a Lion King and be like,
Well, that's the thing. When you obviously, like I've told you before, like probably my favorite, or at least definitely one of my favorites, is Aladdin. It's close between that and Lion King on what one's my favorites. But coming out of the Aladdin one, I mean, you remember I was buzzing. I thought it was great.
yeah,
Like just how they did everything and all that kind of stuff. Like I believed that even though it was like very, very close and they still had the original songs, there was so much of a new story in there with like the Jasmine kind of side plot of her, I won't stay silent, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I really like that.
To add that new edge to her, I thought that it was great. And then even the genie getting a wee love interest, and that was also. Whilst we're still in lockdown just now, it turns out that according to people in the UK, and when I say people in the UK, it's like the cinema board for the UK, they are expecting theatres to open again. When I say theatres, I mean cinemas, not theatres. They are expecting cinemas to be open again on July the 4th.
July the 4th, that's
July the 4th.
Not that far away.
Well, it's May 11th
not that far away.
today. It's May 11th when we're recording this, so it's like just under 2 months.
Yeah, that's not too bad. I thought it was going to be a lot longer than that.
What are your thoughts? Do you think it is going to open July the 4th, or do you think it's not? Because we're kind of I don't want to talk politics, but we're kind of sitting in this situation now because we live in Scotland, where our First Minister is saying one thing, and then the Prime Minister of the UK is saying something not completely different, but different. So, I mean, I went out a walk today, and the past week or so, whilst we've been in lockdown, there's been like nobody on building sites or whatever. Like, you'll know as you're coming into Straven that there's from the golf course way, there's like they're building houses on the right. And I went a walk today, and I saw that there was actually people, like not even like some people. There was like loads of people on the site, loads of cars and everything. And I'm going, right. Well, I'm pretty sure our First Minister said it's still the same case. It's still stay at home. But they've evidently.
I'm not 100% sure what the directives are for people in the building trade. I don't really know. But in regards to, do I think that the cinemas will actually open then? I actually think they will.
All right. Okay.
And having thought about it,
in both countries or just England or in all of the UK, you're taking that.
Right now, I think both countries will open.
Okay.
With it being, was it just under 2 months? So was it about 7 weeks? Roughly.
Well, 7 weeks.
Yeah. Currently, our country does a 3-week review. Every 3 weeks, we're reviewing our lockdown situation. So I think by the time you get to another 2 of those, in 6 weeks' time, I think we'll probably I like to think, it might just be being optimistic, but I'd like to think that restrictions will have been lifted enough. But at the same time, I certainly don't think it's a certainty. I think it very much could be pushed back if the government say so. So it's up in the air. But I don't know if I'm being optimistic, but I'd like to believe that they'll be open by then.
Okay, so here's my question to you then. Here's my question, right? July 4th comes along, right? Cinemas are open. Are you rushing back in on July 4th? Are you going straight in?
Okay, so there's a couple of factors. I think the first factor is it depends on what movies are out.
Mm-hmm.
If there's nothing out that I'm that bothered about, then I'm no rushing into the cinema.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's something that's a big release that I'm like, I need to see that, but I don't want to have anything spoiled for me.
Yeah, I don't think big releases will come back for until maybe towards the end of the year. I think around about Christmas we are going to be like inundated with big releases. I think we will not leave the cinema. We'll be churning out podcasts like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to once we get out of lockdown, is being able to do these podcasts and review films that we've just seen in the cinema. Right now I'm enjoying, as we've just started doing our favourite films, but it'll be good to do new films. Yeah. But am I rushing in? Probably not, unless unless it's major movies that I would desperately want to see. And it also depends on what their policy is in terms of social distancing, which I would imagine they would have things like precautions in place. But it would depend on all of that. I wouldn't necessarily be immediately rushing back into a confined space with a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm certainly not going to go like maybe even until next year. I'm certainly not going to go at like what is considered a peak time. I'll probably do what I kind of normally do when I'm off work. I'll go during the day, and you know me, I'll see everything. But so I'll probably go a lot off peak times during the day, to avoid that kind of a crowd. So at least for the first maybe until next year, I don't know. It just kind of depends on like other things like when schools go back, what they're going to do with schools. Obviously by that point anyway, in Scotland the schools will be finished for summer. So I don't know. I think for me it depends a lot on what is going on around that and what the numbers are around that. I'm getting really tired. I know we're talking about it now. I'm getting really tired of talking about it and listening to stuff. But until I can guarantee my safety, but until that R number is below 1, or even below 0.5, I don't know what I'll be doing. Or until my work go, right, we're open again, we're fully open to guests and whatnot. I currently work in a hotel, for those of you who are listening. So currently my job is just to sit in the hotel and look after the building. But until they fully say, "Oh, we're opening," then I don't know whether I'll take the risk or I'll have to plan around it.
I think any of these dates that I think are getting bandied about right now of expected like opening and things like that have to be taken with a pinch of salt. I don't think anybody knows for sure anything at the moment. So I think it's their sort of guesstimation and hope of when they would like to reopen, but I certainly wouldn't take it as a definite.
No. That's not. Me producing this news isn't me saying that. Get your popcorn, get your hot dogs, get your drinks. We're opening July 4th. No, it is still an expected date. But anyway, enough politics, enough virus talk. That's not why
let's move on from this.
We are here to we are here for escapism. That's why we love movies. That's why we love what we do, and that's why we love Star Wars.
Yes, we do. And I believe this week, as I've already said, you have chosen to review Star Wars Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back, yes, that is correct. Now, for a lot of people, the greatest Star Wars of all time. I am of that believability. I like 4. I like 6. 1, 2, yeah. No, number 3, you know I'm.
Right now,
You know I love
let's
number
not
3.
really touch the prequels.
Yeah.
They're a
You know I
touchy
love number
subject.
3 just because of the memeability of it all. I love the dialogue in 3. And then the new ones, I like the new ones. I love Force Awakens. I loved Last Jedi. I remember sitting in the cinema in Rome and just being like, I don't want this film to end. And then
I personally really enjoyed The Last Jedi as well.
yeah,
However, it's one of those things that once you have things pointed out to you, and you kind of can't unsee them.
yeah,
So it's kind of lost its shine for me. But I remember when I left the cinemas thinking it was a fantastic film.
yeah. And then I rewatched Rise of Skywalker, which I enjoyed more in the second watch than I did the first watch. The first watch, I kind of did it the wrong way round of how I normally do things. Like I'll normally go in first with the fan brain, and then I'll go in, if I want to watch film again, I'll go in again with like a quote unquote critic brain, and then kind of pick it apart. But there was just like stuff. I mean, to be fair, it was stuff I'd heard beforehand going into it, so I think my kind of brain was already swayed that kind of way. So yeah, I think that's why it kind of put a dampener on me. Then I watched it again and just kind of went, I just watch it for it being a ruddy film. If you want to pick apart the science and you want to pick apart the scenes and stuff, just, why are you watching films then?
Yeah, exactly. Me personally, when I go into especially fantasy films, I try not to let myself get bogged down by the law of things and like more into the nitty gritty of things. I just allow myself to enjoy the escapism of
Yeah.
the film, and most of the time I enjoy things. So yeah.
Well, anyway, back to Empire, back to all things good. The reason I picked this one, and I think the reason why I enjoy it so much, is because it's the first kind of film, at least I remember, where effectively the bad guys won.
Yeah.
If you kind of watch it, I mean, I literally just finished watching it again like half an hour ago, so I'm like fresh. I've got like my fresh take on. But I definitely remember being it's the first kind of film where they didn't obviously didn't win outright, but the whole film was more about, obviously with it being titled Empire Strikes Back, it was more about the rebels being on the back foot and the Empire really taking charge this time and really kind of being like the think that it's in like a fight, they are the ones who are putting the pressure on this time, whereas the rebels are doing the running, they're doing the defending, and it's constantly shown that throughout the film, like when they're on Hoth, when the Falcon's running away from the Star Destroyers and stuff like that, from that whole arc, Luke running away to get better, it was all about, for the rebels, that film was all about retreat and rebuild, whereas for the Empire it was about attack, and be the dominant force. So you really saw it really set up the power of them in this one to kind of carry on.
It certainly feels like in this film you really get a sense of how powerful the dark side is and the Force. Just their whole units, the sort of size of their army and how much power they have over the universe, how the rebels really are the underdogs, and how the Jedi aren't really about anymore. There's only a couple of remnants. Obi-Wan's already a Force ghost, and Luke Skywalker is sort of like the last hope, trying to re-spark. So it really is a sense of the Empire really does strike back in this film.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing as well. I was looking into it, and I really loved the there was a lot of character development through a lot of this film. I just remember watching it and thinking, oh, Darth Vader's a bit whiny, is he not? Because it was just, somebody does something wrong, you're dead. Oh, you're dead. I think there was about 3, and that's one of the things I've written down in my notes here is like, the first time he does it, and he has the 2 guys up on the screen, and the guy's like, "Oh, we've lost him, etc." And then he just goes to speak to the other guy and just like, "Oh, you're in charge now," and then just like force chokes the other guy. And I've just written savage promotion here by Darth Vader.
Yeah,
Because
actually,
it's just like, by the way, this is now your job, and the guy who last had it is dead beside you. So if you mess up, then that's what happens.
yeah, I love the guy's face when it's happening as well. The guy who's just got promoted and sees the guy getting choked, and he's like, it's sort of his face and his eyes just sort of shift, and he's like, right, okay. Then he's like, let's go, because he's like terrified, but because he's now in that position of, if I mess up, I'm going to die.
Yeah. So as well, like through the whole film, and there's so many scenes that you can like talk about and be like, oh, this was amazing, this was stuff. I wanna kind of look at things that are quite funny through it as well, that kind of made me laugh a bit, and it's just dated stuff. Like it's just stuff that if the film, I think there's
a lot of comical aspects in this film.
So it's like within the first like 20 minutes of the film, Luke gets attacked by this Yeti looking thing, and it just the Yeti attack and the Tauntaun, it just all looks hilariously bad. Like it looks 80s, and there's stuff like that. And where's the other one I've got? Yoda's just like crazy, like, and if you remember him in the kind of prequel Yoda, he's not like, he's pretty, he seems like altogether, he seems like these are the decisions, that's not, but this Yoda's pure running about and screaming and all this.
I've got that in my notes as well for this film written down. So yeah, I've got written down, Yoda is weird in this film. Why?
Yeah.
Because when I was watching it last night, and when Luke meets Yoda, I'm just like, he's absolutely mental. Yeah. He's crawling about and looking at things and eating his dinner and being a bit mental. And I'm going, he's not like this in the prequels. And it was only, I'm not sure what age Luke is in this film. So it's maybe about 15, 20 years roughly from the last time you see him.
So
and Yoda's went absolutely like seemingly batty mental. But what I did notice was when he eventually gets him back to his wee home that he stays in, and he starts speaking to Obi-Wan, he changes so much immediately. He suddenly just changes into, nah, I can't train him. He's got no patience. And I genuinely think that Yoda was just testing him at that point. I don't really think that he was just mental. I think he was kind of deliberately being mental to see how Luke reacted, to kind of test him off the bat.
Yeah, and there's things that I've watched, and even in the new films when they've done it, like see training for the Force or training yourself in the ways of the Force. It just seems like really intense yoga. And it always seems to have something to do with rocks. And I remember watching it, and I remember watching Empire just then. And then obviously, like, he's doing the thing with the rocks, and then he sees the X-Wing sinking, and then he has this big fit about the X-Wing sinking. Then Yoda's like, well, just bring it out then. And then it then took me back to the scene in, is it Rise of Skywalker or is it Last Jedi? One of the two of them, where he gets the thing out. I think it's Rise of Skywalker, and they get the X-Wing out of the water. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's like the thing. it's like Empire.
Yeah, I never made that reference until you've just said that. Yeah, he does finally raise it out of the water. Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool throwback. I never realised.
And another scene which I need to talk about, and obviously there's other stuff. In fact, before I talk about that scene, I've got written like lightsaber battles in these original films are trash. Like,
yeah,
it's literally like, mate, I know I know the listeners can't see it, but it's literally like flick the wrist to the right, flick the wrist to the oh my goodness, left. I'll try that again. Flick the wrist. Flick the wrist to the right. Yeah, flick the wrist to the right. Flick the wrist to the left.
Maybe this is all staying in.
Yeah, maybe put it up in the air, maybe put it down, cross each other again, like stuff like that. I was just like, man, these are trash. But then you watch the new ones, and obviously the prequels, it's all flips and dips and all that. And I think
Yeah.
the new ones are pretty good. I like the new ones. The new ones are
See,
they're pretty classic.
I actually have note on the Vader fight scene, and I know it doesn't really hold up because we have seen Vader fight Obi-Wan in the previous film, and it was very
trash.
Basic trash. Yeah. However, I like to try and make justifications for these things. So in this one, I've written about the Luke Vader fight, and he's clearly not trying to kill him here because he's meant to be. You don't know this at this stage in the fight. If you've never seen it before, and if you haven't seen the prequels, like if you're watching this like when it was first released, you don't know yet that Darth Vader is Luke's father. But obviously Vader does. So Vader's trying not to kill his son. And at that point in the film, it's already been stated that he's actually going to try and freeze him and deliver him to the Emperor, because they want to bring him over to the dark side. So when he's having the fight scene, he's not trying to kill him. He's more or less just sort of doing a bit of light fencing with him, because at this stage Luke has not been training for long at all. He knows basic lightsaber skills. He is absolutely no match for Darth Vader. So Darth Vader really isn't trying, which is why it does seem basic. That's how I like to justify it. Although, as I've already said, that falls down when you compare it to the fight scene with Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi, which they really were just toying with each other. But hey ho.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to try and justify these things.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'm just trying to read my notes here to see if there's anything else funny. Oh, we were slightly talking about it beforehand, then you told me to stop. Vader at the dinner table.
Yes.
I don't know I don't know why it's funny. I don't know what's so funny about it, but I was just sat watching it, and then it's just like Lando says to Han and Leia, "Oh, you know, I've made a deal, so the Empire will never bother us again," or something along those lines. And then the door just opens, and then Vader's just sat there, and I'm like, I don't know why that's funny. Yeah. I just think it's funny.
Brilliant. I think it's brilliant because it's him out of context of where you normally see him. Vader's normally on the Death Star, or he's invading bases, and he's like, and then it's just like the door opens, and it's because it's so unexpected. He's just sitting at the dinner table, and it's just like the most unexpected scene is why it's just hysterical to see. Because I don't even remember what he says particularly, but I know Han goes to shoot him, and he just sort of
he just puts his hand out and stops the bullets.
Puts his hand out and then like takes the gun off him. Yeah. And then Lando's just like, "Oh, there's nothing I could do. They just landed before you."
Here before you. Yeah.
Yeah, but that scene I found particularly hysterical. Another thing I've written in my notes about is about Lando, and watching this film on its own, I genuinely believe that Lando was only Introduced as a backup plan for if they couldn't get Harrison Ford to sign on for a third movie, because I believe at that time they didn't know whether he was coming back, which is why they froze him.
Yeah.
So they didn't know what was happening, because I was watching it and I was thinking he's a very similar character to Han and a natural replacement if they couldn't get Harrison Ford back.
Yeah.
To more or less do his role, apart from just be a change of character. And obviously Harrison Ford did come back in the next movie. But that's what I was thinking. I was just like, they've literally just brought him in to replace Harrison Ford if he doesn't come back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, whilst there's a lot of, you know, funny bits or stuff that we would find funny now, obviously maybe back then it was like, oh my goodness, it was almost like a horror film. Like, and I did watch bits and I did go, oh, I could see they were trying to, like the bit with the Yeti and all that kind of stuff, because it just appears out of nowhere. And there was elements, I think, that they were trying to sprinkle in some light horror, like that. And then when Han and Leia and the rest, and Chewie and C-3PO are hiding from the Empire on that asteroid, and they go out and they check what it is, and it turns out to be that big creature. I think that was kind of played up for a wee bit of like horror aspect and whatnot, and it did, like I said in the beginning, this one is probably, maybe before the prequels, the darkest film that in the Star Wars franchise.
Yeah, and I think it was deliberately made that way because
Yeah.
obviously it really is meant to be about the Empire and how they're so powerful.
Yeah.
I think it's meant to be a much more darker film,
Mm.
with still light-hearted elements. But I just say when they're in the cave, which turns out to be a creature's mouth, and they've got these weird bat-like creatures, there is a sort of horror-esque theme in there, especially when it was made originally.
Yeah.
Like, not now, it just looks kind of comical, but when it was first released, these were sort of cutting edge things that looked terrifying.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So what about you? I'm just kind of looking for my notes. What are some of your kind of thoughts on this film that you got?
Yes, so obviously, when I was looking at watching the film last night, obviously we get to the iconic scene where he says, "Luke, I am your father." However,
I was about to. I was
he
about
does
to.
not say. He doesn't say, "Luke, I am your father," and I know this is known by a lot of most movie buffs now, but it is still the famous, most misquoted scene or line ever, because most people quote, "Luke, I am your father," but what he actually says is, "No, I am your father,"
Mm.
because Luke had previously just said to him, "Oh, something I can't remember the exact line, but something along the lines of,
Uh,
you."
he told me. He says Obi-Wan never told you about my father, about your father. I think he says he said you killed him, and then I think he says no, I am your father.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
right. That's
and
right.
then Mark Hamill makes the noise of how I imagine he does the toilet when it's really
I
hard.
lo- Do you want me to do my? Yeah, I was gonna do my impression.
Yeah.
No. That's my. It's impossible. that's my impression of
Mark
that scene.
Hamill, although I love him, there's some really shoddy acting in Star Wars from him, especially like this. It sticks in my head now. Now that we're talking about Mark Hamill's shoddy acting, and it's the bit where him and they're all flat when they're getting attacked on Hoth, and he's flying out to the ground battle, and he goes to see Han and Chewie because they're fixing up the Falcon because they're leaving, and he goes to like hug Chewie, but it's a really awkward kind of looking hug, and it's funny, But
Yeah.
anyway, continue with what you were saying.
So just we've obviously just talked about him not the misquoted line, so that was one of the thoughts I had. But one of the things that I was looking at when the movie first started was the effects, and even though you look at some of the stuff and you go, yeah, that looks dated now. There's actually a lot of it that still holds up.
Oh yeah,
considering the limitations they had when they made it.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of the beginning attack. Yeah. The attack at the beginning with the AT-ATs, that's all like stop motion.
Yeah.
They're figurines that are being moved frame by frame.
Well, all the ships were they not as well?
I think so. If not stop motion, then they were certainly figurines. But I believe they probably were. But they look so good considering that like CGI and like special effects, like digital special effects, wasn't a thing back then. And you look at how they had to achieve a lot of these, or the majority of these things, practically.
Yeah.
And a lot of them still hold up today, even though the versions that we watch now, whether that's on DVD or Disney Plus or wherever you're watching it, do have certain CGI elements that have been added over the years. There are quite a few, but some of them are less noticeable than others. Some of them smack you in the face, but some of them are actually really subtle and done really well. But there's still a lot of practical effects that were made when they originally made the films that still hold up and look pretty good. And I think that's just a testament to another reason why Star Wars was such a successful franchise. Not only was the stories fantastic, but the special effects were cutting edge and still hold up to this day.
Yeah.
So which I think is really impressive.
I pretty much agree there. I mean, you look at some of the stuff, and I mean, I do think I go, like that's really advanced. It's really ahead of its time, and obviously that's one of the things that made it so popular, is how ahead of its time it was. Like, um, them films are iconic, 4, 5, and 6, and I think that most of that is down to how, like I've said twice already, ahead of its time it was. I mean, maybe like the prequels and thus the sequels kind of struggled, because they won't achieve that. I don't think they've going to achieve that iconic status, and the only reason they have such an iconic status is because they are a part of that, what the early work, what was done.
Yeah,
Like
exactly, exactly.
I don't know in maybe like, well, when did they come out? The 70s, 80s, so in about 30, 40 years time, whether, I don't know if my kids are going to be going, oh, that Last Jedi was so ahead of its time, or that Rise of Skywalker was so ahead of its time, and it
Yeah,
won't
and
have as
that's the sad
iconic.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, the sad thing about the new Star Wars is I don't think any of those films are ahead of their time.
no,
I think like the original. I think the only films that were the original Star Wars. I
yeah,
think the rest of them are trying to recapture something.
mm,
No, I don't think any of them are really trying to strive into something new,
no.
and be
Well,
bold.
The Last Jedi did, and it got panned for
To
that.
an extent. To an
Um,
extent.
yeah, no, in terms of a lot of stuff, and like the whole, oh, it doesn't matter who you are, to be important in the universe, like that was a big theme throughout of it. Whereas, like I said, one of my main criticisms of Rise of Skywalker was how she was like, "Oh, I'm Rey Skywalker," so then it instantly made it about, oh, that she was Palpatine's niece. That it instantly made it about that one family. Again, you're like,
Mm.
oh, Palpatine's granddaughter, not niece. What am I talking about? But yeah, so I would say that out of all of them, that one tried to be different more than any of the prequels or any of the sequels, but it got, like I say, it got panned for it. And that's the thing when you've got something as beloved as this, that there is going to be that people, and how much lore Star Wars has got behind it. So obviously you've got 30 odd years worth of comics, 30 odd years worth of games, 30 odd years worth of background content that
Yeah.
people study, and fair
Yeah.
play to them. Like, I like Star Wars. I don't think I actually like anything that much. But fair
Yeah.
play to those who do it, and they'll
Yeah.
know.
And I think that's the issue when if you're trying to make bold statements or bold changes
Mhm.
in a franchise like Star Wars, is that if you're not studied up and know about what the law of Star Wars is, and you try and change that in a movie, then you will come up against a lot of backlash because there's so much been built up behind a franchise that if you try and change it without any real reason, unless it's like a big reveal or something like that, but it
Yeah,
was just oh yeah, but by the way, you don't have to be part of if it contradicts what's already came before it, then yeah, you will come up against issues, and I think that's what happened with um the Last Jedi,
yeah,
is that there were certain aspects of that film which tried to contradict or rewrite what had already come before, and that's where the issues came with it. Although as a standalone movie, was
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, last week I did some background facts, or like little behind the scenes facts. This week, because it's my film, because it's my film, I'm gonna do
And I'll do it as I like.
yeah. So those of you who are hoping for some background, behind the scenes stuff on Star Wars, not today. Unless you have another one, unless you have a Star Wars in yours, then it ain't happening. But anyway, top 5 scenes. So coming in at number 5. It is the Vader dream sequence that Luke has on Hoth. No, not Hoth. Dagobah, when he's training, and when how he he lightsabers his head off.
Yeah, yeah.
Just really
That's a good
like that scene. Thought that it, like, obviously the first time you watch it, you're like, oh my goodness, he's there. a bit like they do in Avengers Endgame when they chop off Thanos' head. No, sorry, not Avengers Endgame. In Infinity War, when Gamora stabs Thanos, and you're like, oh my goodness, he's dead. What are we going to do for the rest of the film? So yeah, that's a bit like that. I kind of went, the first time I watched it, I remember going, oh, right, okay, that's it. Mental. But that was cool. So that was number 5. Coming in at number 4.
Number 4.
Yes, it's the Hoth ground battle. So, I don't know if you can remember any other battle. I know there was other battles in like the skies and stuff like that in A New Hope, but I don't think there was anything in terms of like ground battle with in terms of...
I don't think so. I think that this is the first film that has that sort of like epic ground battle in Star Wars.
Yeah. So obviously with all the ships flying about, all the walkers, all the other stuff.
And one of the things I have in my notes about the ground battle is with the AT-ATs. Where there's that famous scene with the ships flying, using the cable and flying around, tying the legs up to be able to trip them up and destroy them. And that's the scene that was referenced by Spider-Man in Civil War.
Yes.
When they went to take down Ant-Man.
Yep, I have that written.
When he was giant.
And then it was talking about, remember that old movie with the walkie thingies, and then
how old is this guy?
yeah.
Or young? I can't remember the exact quote.
That's funny. I had that written down as well. I really like that. I like seeing the different stormtroopers as well. You found one of them very weird, didn't you?
Yeah, like when they're attacking the base there, and they go into the snow pit, and they go in, and they're like wearing these troopers that are like wearing these sort of masks that are like little veils over their face. It's like made out of polythene or like
I believe
plastic sheets.
I believe they are called snow troopers.
Snow troopers.
Yeah, so they must be trained specifically for the snow.
I presume that the wee plastic sheet in front of their face does something to protect them from the snow that a big mask doesn't.
Yeah.
Because I was just watching
there's only eye holes in it. There's not a mouth hole in the snow trooper.
Yeah, it's just it's just a sheet of plastic. And I was watching it, I was just like, I don't remember seeing these before. And they look really weird. Like why are these stormtroopers with plastic on their face just marching into this base? Where's the helmets?
Do you want me to tell you the real reason for them being there?
Sure.
Toys.
Do you think
sell more
back
toys?
Then,
yes.
Do you think back then it was just about merchandise?
Maybe
not. Budget?
Maybe not. But
it's cheaper if we put some plastic in front of their face instead of making real helmets.
It doesn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt their sales. So yeah, that was number 4. So I changed this one. In fact, and we've already talked about it. So number 3, we won't spend too much time on number 3 because it's Vader at the dinner table. That's how much I enjoyed this scene.
It was a very... I enjoy it. Well, like we've already spoken about, I enjoyed it just because of how seemingly ridiculous it is. Like, at first sight, like, dinner sitting... It's almost like he's about to turn around and go, would you like some tea?
Yeah.
Like...
I'll carve the turkey. Anyway, moving on to number 2. Number 2. It is the famous "I love you." I know. Yes, that is in this film. Han Solo is really badass throughout the whole. Like, in the first kind of film, it sets him up to be like, yeah, a bit badass, but he's a bit of a coward, and it kind of starts off this way. I mean, I have written in my notes, Han is leaving again. 3 apostrophes, and then I wait. Is this just to get Leia's attention? Because he's obviously more into her.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of Han when you actually look at him that he's very attention seeking.
Yeah, because there's that, but then you move into more like, you know, he kind of proves himself, and even Leia starts to see it because it's the bit where he's where they're escaping the TIE fighters and they're trying to escape the Empire, and he flies into the asteroid field, and she's like, you don't have to do this to impress me. And then I'm like, at this point I've just written, flying into an asteroid field. is badass. Because it
Yeah,
just
I
is such
agree.
a
I also, when I was watching that scene and she's like, "You don't have to do this to impress me," and I'm just like, "It's not all about you, love."
yeah. Yeah, she's a bit
Like,
like, why
have
is
you
this
not
all about
seen that
me?
we're about to die and I can't get out of this any other way? You don't need to do this to impress me. It's not all about you.
And then yeah, so it just leads on, and then obviously they have their steamy kiss, which gets interrupted by C-3PO, and then he gets caught by Vader, and obviously they want to test the carbon freezing on him to make sure that he'll still survive, or that Luke will still survive when they do it to him. And then he gets put in the thing, and Leia's like, "I love you," and he's just like, "I know." So for the whole film, it's been building up this badassery, and then that's peak badassery. It's what every guy wants to be, and it's that coolness that every guy's like, "Oh my goodness, a woman is fawning after me," and he's just like, "Yeah, I know." When really
I
inside he's
know.
probably going, "I love you too, woman." And lastly, I'm going to move on to the top. I'm going to see if there's actually any honourable mentions before. In fact, yeah, before I go to number one, let's have a look here. Yeah, a few honourable mentions is Yoda's Force speech. So the speech he has when he's like training Luke, and when Luke's
Yeah, the one, the one where he's like, there is no try. You do or do not.
yeah,
That's that one.
uh,
Yeah.
so the one where he's trying to get him to thingy to force the X-wing out of the swamp. So that's one that's an honourable mention. Let me see what else I've got here. Falcon being on the back of the Star Destroyer.
Yeah, that was pretty, I would say, badass as well.
That's
Having like
also
landed on it. Yeah.
Just anytime R2D2 screams, it gets me every time. It gets me every time. That and the noise that Palpatine makes when he does "It's treason" then in Revenge of the Sith, like it just sounds ridiculous. And is there any
Yeah.
more? Is there any more?
Have you? I know you did honorable mentions, but have you seen the Star Wars dog video? And it's just the dog that sounds like the fighter planes, and it's just running. It's just like, oh, I need to send it because it's just like it's just barking, but it totally sounds like, you know, those planes that go by and they're just like,
yeah, the TIE fighters. Yeah.
This type, yeah, and it sounds so like them, and it's really funny.
So my last honourable mention is the sleeping in a tauntaun. That must be smelly. So that's all I've written for that one. It's just
Yes,
how
that must
they
be
cut it
smelly.
open. I thought they smelled bad. On the outside. On the outside. Don't know why I said outside funny there. My goodness.
Well, that's the thing. I thought during that scene that he was gonna like cut it open and they were both just gonna get inside and stay there.
Yeah,
but he just puts Luke in it and then goes, "I'm gonna put up a tent."
Yeah. It's like, why is Luke not in the tent? But then I suppose he's probably already cold. It's probably really warm in there. It's probably warmer than they can get the tent. But anyway, number one.
Number one.
The best scene for me in the whole thing is when Darth Vader is trying to convince Luke to join the dark side, and then it all climaxes in, "No, I am your father." So that is my number one scene for The Empire Strikes Back. I think it's what we built to the whole thing, and it's when they talk, obviously, Palpatine, or we don't know him as Palpatine at this point, obviously the Emperor says to Darth Vader, "Oh, he's the son, we fear he's the son of Anakin Skywalker." At that point, we don't know that Darth Vader's Anakin Skywalker. And how it's just the whole big iconic building point of the franchise, because when that leaves Vader's mouth, you know from that point the rest of the franchise isn't going to be the same.
Yeah, exactly. It's a one of the most iconic moments in cinema history, which is why it has to be at the top of the list.
So,
and another point in that scene, which backs up my point I was talking about earlier about Vader wasn't trying when he was fighting him, was that you'll notice that Luke while they're fighting, just at that bit, actually clips him with his lightsaber
Yeah.
on his shoulder, I think. And it's seconds after that, you can see Vader going, like, he actually clips him and it's like, oh, that's it. And it's almost like, it's immediately, as soon as Luke gets him, he starts trying, and he just immediately just goes, boom, and takes his hand off.
Yeah.
Which and for me, backs up again that he really wasn't trying throughout that entire fight until he gets clipped by Luke.
Well, that's
which
the thing.
he did.
With now, like, towards the end of that, the end of the film, we do start to see Luke getting that smidge of dark in him. Like, obviously when he's proper going for Vader, and then at the end it kind of caps it off when they're flying away in the Falcon, and then he says, "Ben, why didn't you tell me?" You could see that frustration, and he didn't say it angrily.
Yeah.
He didn't say it in like a raging way, but you could tell that it was just that seed that was going to take you into the next movie and go, right, what's going to go on from here? So,
yeah.
So, that was my top 5 scenes. That was my take on The Empire Strikes Back.
So, what would you say, would you rank this film out of 10?
Oh, are we doing this now? Okay, I did think about doing this. So, out of 10, I would probably give it, without like giving it away, I would probably give it a 10. It has everything. Comedy, darkness, horror, romance, action, everything, sci-fi, obviously the whole thing's sci-fi, but literally it has every single kind of genre mashed up into a film with such iconic moments, iconic dialogue, a film that stands the test of time for 40 years. Yeah, we've had little laughs at bits and pieces here and there, but it's not stuff that took away from the viewing experience for me. So yeah, I'd definitely say 10. I think a lot of these best films that I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be giving them 10s.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I was trying to decide there myself what I would rank it. And then I was trying to think, well, what are the negative points of the film? What would detract it and bring it down? Yeah. And I can't really put my finger on anything that I could say, well, I didn't like this about it, or this could have made it better, which makes me struggle not to give it a 10, because it is one of the greatest sort of all-time sci-fi movies, which I don't think has really been topped in terms of how ahead of its time it was, and how amazing it was. So I think for me, I'm going to have to give it a 10 also, which is a very high... I know this is the first one we've done a rating on, but it's a very high rating from me, because if I find flaws in films, I will be more than happy to detract them to 9, 8, 7, 6 and bring them down. So the fact that I can't really put my finger on anything in this film that I can detract upon, just is a testament to how fantastic the movie is.
Yeah, I mean, a film that's been parodied, a film that's been replicated, a film that's been honoured by so many directors to say that that was the inspiration for them. Like, obviously, when they were making Thanos, they were like, oh, we want him to be like our Darth Vader and stuff like that. When Marvel said that, that just shows the testament of Star Wars for the characters, and then the fact that you even now have people, when they go to like Galaxy's Edge or they go to conventions and stuff, that it's not just like, oh, I'm part of the light side and all this. It's like people want to dress up like Vader, people want to dress up like Kylo Ren, people care about both sides, and that's when you have that's really a testament to the franchise and how big it is as a whole, and how much it means to people that they can take stuff away from the good side and the bad side, and they feel like they could not cheer on either, because obviously you know how every film's going to end, or you know how every franchise is going to end. The goods are more likely
you know, win. The good guys are going to win at the end of the day.
Yeah, so the fact that the franchise made people care that much about the bad side is a testament, and I think it was this film that really kind of set the tone and really done that.
Yeah, I think so too.
So it kind of took Star Wars from, it was like a global phenomenon at the first try, but then I think it even took it to the next level. After that, it was like it became
it raised the bar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the action and sci-fi franchises try to hit. That was
Yeah,
always what
yeah.
I think that's what that is, and that will always be that case. I think there isn't many films that come close. I mean, I definitely think there's maybe 2 or 3, but in terms of around that time, and I don't think there has been any or many that are very close.
No, not many. There's literally only a handful or
Mm.
less that have come close to comparison with this movie,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So, yeah, it was amazing. Amazing film.
Cool. Well, that's all I had to say on that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
excellent.
Thank you for listening to my TED Talk.
Yeah, no, it was good. I really enjoyed reviewing that movie. Enjoyed sitting and rewatching it, and it's been fun to talk about it.
So next week, what are you bringing to the table? Tickle me.
Next week is another change in. Certainly a change in genre from the movie that I chose last time, which was the first Avengers movie. Next podcast I'm going to be reviewing is going to be Split.
All right, okay.
Which is
interesting.
Yeah, which is the M. Night Shyamalan film, which kind of almost relaunched, but sort of brought credit to his career again after a string of poor movies.
Put a bit of respect on his name.
Yeah, it was a film that I walked out of the cinema, jaw open.
I thought you were just going to leave it at, it was a film I just walked out the cinema. I was like, wait, no you didn't, I was there when you saw it.
No, I didn't walk out during the film, no. Once the movie was finished...
Martin just didn't walk out at all. He just stayed, and he loved it that much, he just stayed in the theatre for the next showing, and the next showing, and the next showing. Then I came back a week later, he was still in that screen.
So yeah, but when I did leave after watching the film, my jaw was open. It was one of those films I was like, wow, that was amazing. So the next podcast we're going to be reviewing that.
Well, that's interesting, because we don't discuss this beforehand, and I didn't know what you were going to pick this, so I was genuinely on the edge of my seat going, what have I watched this week?
Yeah, I know. See,
so it's good to be one I know that I'll enjoy, and one that I have.
Yeah, exactly. You're glad I didn't turn around and pick something that we'd. I say we'd because it's meant to be one of our favorite films. But if I picked a film which you didn't particularly like, for example, if I turned around and went, "Oh, and this week we're going to review Thor: The Dark World."
Oh, I know that's not going to be on your list, though. So that's
that's not on my list.
See, that's the thing. I know that films that you're going to pick are going to be ones that I'm probably going to like, whereas films that I pick, I think, because I'm definitely going to throw some curveballs. I'm telling you now, podcast listeners, that some of the films that I'm going to do over this, however long we do this, they're maybe going to have you scratching your head, but they're films that I enjoyed nonetheless. So that's
and if I've not already seen them, it'll be an experience because I'll need to sit and watch them before we review them.
Well, that's part of maybe my decision making process, because there's films I've tried to get you to watch for a long time and you've not watched them. So it's my way of going, here you go, there's the DVD, and you can watch that now. You've got no excuse.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I'm looking forward to it. And I like to think I have a few up my sleeve which aren't necessarily going to be ones that you'll go, oh yeah, I knew you were going to pick that. Yeah. Like Hulk Split was, but I've genuinely, the movies that I've tried to choose have all been movies that I left the cinema sort of like with that experience of being like, wow, that was amazing. And for me, Split was one of them. So yeah, that's what we're going to be reviewing next week.
Cool.
That sort of rounds up our podcast this week. So thanks for listening.
Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, I hope you join us again next week where we'll be reviewing Split. So it's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from him.
I've always wanted to do that.
No, it's also a goodbye from me. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.